Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. Almost go time for Michael Hunter, who's headlining a boxing event at the Hulu Theatre as part of Triller's Versus series, the first one in its type, and there's going to be a rap battle between hip-hop stars The Lox and Dipset, some sort of versus. It's a new format that's being trialled. I know from what I've seen online, some people are really looking forward to that element of the actual event. In terms of the boxing side, which I'm more interested in, Hunter and Wilson, it's not a great main event, is it? And this is obviously the fight that Michael Hunter walked away from the IBF final eliminator with Filip Hrgović to take. So in his opponent, and we'll just quickly get to it here. So you've got Mike Wilson, the White Delight, that's his alias. And actually he kind of looks like Chuck Liddell just a little bit. Record of 21-1 for the majority of his career. He actually has been a cruiserweight, and that's where he last fought. And also he has been out of the ring for basically 2 years now. So Michael Hunter facing an inactive cruiserweight who's going into this fight with no form. And as we know, Mike Wilson was somehow ranked by the WBA for this fight off the back of that zero form. But as we know, the sanctioning bodies, not exactly scrupulous characters, are they? So the ranking clearly bought and paid for. Michael Hunter, this is a WBA eliminator of some sort, unclear for what path in the WBA, because obviously there's champions galore, and we won't get into that. But Michael Hunter himself, he's also been rather inactive since a draw in 2019 with Alexander Povetkin. Just the 4 rounds of action against Sean Lockery coming into this one. And I gotta say, because that was on a relatively obscure pay-per-view, and he didn't look that good. He looked rusty. He looked like a guy who'd been out of the ring a year. He didn't sparkle. And that's one of the potential things that could happen in this fight. I know a lot of people, or actually the majority of people, apart from Hunter, who's been unapologetic about taking this fight, walking away from Hrgović, taking a multi-fight deal with Triller that was worth more. Been unapologetic about that. But for him and his profile, there's a little bit on the line here, because if he goes in here against a guy who's a cruiserweight who's been out of the ring for a couple of years and really hasn't done too much in the sport, and he doesn't look good and he doesn't sparkle, I'm sure that the knives will be out from fans. And I'm sure the explanation would be, well, I've been out of the ring for a certain amount of time. You have to expect there's a degree of rust, yada, yada, yada. I would love nothing more for him to just go in here and blast Wilson out, because really, for the opponent that he's facing from where he was going to be fighting, and he's headlining an event here against a guy who's been out for 2 years, hopefully he can go in and do a number on him. I know some people won't be happy with that as well, because they'll say, what's the point? But I would rather see that than him struggle over rounds because he's rusty or something of that ilk. So hopefully he does go in there and look good, for his reputation's sake. But the best thing that Triller has done for this card, because you might remember it was originally going to be on the Teofimo Lopez and George Kambosos undercard, and not sure what's happening with that card, but I actually paid for it, and that was before it was, obviously delayed, and now who knows when it's going to happen. But since then, this event has been moved off it, and that's the reason I bought the card, essentially. But it's going to be free on FITE TV. So that is the best thing that FITE's done with this. They're actually making this available to everyone, because if it had been on pay-per-view, I didn't like the chances, even with the sort of other element of the event and the versus battle between the different groups. It would have been, I think, a bit of a tough sell. So Hunter's going to get paid relatively well for effectively a tune-up against Mike Wilson, and for his hopefully it doesn't turn into anything more than that, because if he does struggle to any extent, it's going to be a bad look. But at least Triller has sort of read the room, and I tweeted about this a couple of weeks ago. They've read the room on this situation, and it's going to be free, because it probably I would have paid for it anyway, because I would have had to, I would have been doing it for the channel. I wouldn't have liked to have paid, but I was pleasantly surprised that this is going to be free, and as you can see in HD, and I'm recording this just a day out from the actual event sort of starting. So it's a midweek card Tuesday, the first of a series of events that's going to be happening the first Tuesday of every month at the same theatre in Madison Square Garden as part of this Versus series. I'm curious about this sort of format, what's going to be happening with the presentation and how they're going to sort of segue between the different, obviously sport and music, etc. The fights itself, the wider undercard, pretty thin, not great, not a great main event, but it's good to see Michael Hunter return, and it'll be good to see where he's at because he's been out of the ring for a couple of years effectively, bar for those 4 rounds against Sean Lockery, where, he just looked so-so. Hopefully for a guy who is regarded so highly, at least in terms of the rankings and where generally people think about his place in the division, that he can come out and reaffirm, look, I'm someone not to be trifled with. So we'll see what happens. But Michael Hunter to win, and hopefully by KO and hopefully early. I think he beats Chuck Liddell here. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter. Boxing_squared. I'm out.